Right outside the gates of Eden, humanity had to learn how to survive. For the first time, human hands began tearing into the earth, establishing the rhythms of agriculture and structured labor. The first two brothers divided this massive new workload. Cain took on the heavy, physical task of working the soil, while his younger brother Abel became a keeper of flocks. When harvest season arrived, both men sought to honor the divine. They gathered the very first yields of their hard work, some fruits of the soil from Cain, and the fat portions from the firstborn of the flock from Abel, and brought them forward as offerings. But the response they received was sharply divided. For reasons that are completely unexplained in the text, the Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, while Cain's harvest was entirely rejected. Cain's reaction was immediate and visceral. He grew furious, his face visibly downcast. It is the first recorded instance of unchecked human envy. This sudden rejection created a dangerous psychological vacuum. The pristine innocence of their early survival was gone, replaced by a deep internal crisis that threatened to tear the brothers apart. The Lord finds Cain in the middle of his despair, addressing him directly. "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast?" What follows is a specific, chilling diagnosis of his emotional turmoil. If he does not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It is described not as an abstract concept, but as a predatory entity waiting to strike. Yet Cain is also given a profound ultimatum of free will. The warning ends with a clear directive. The predatory urge desires to have him, but he must rule over it. The conflict shifts entirely onto Cain's shoulders. The simple story of two brothers comparing their harvest is now a high-stakes test of human agency and moral restraint. Cain makes his choice. With cold, calculated premeditation, he extends an invitation. Let's go out to the field. He actively isolates his younger brother, walking him far away from any potential witnesses. Once they are alone, Cain attacks. He shatters the silence of the field, executing his brother and finalizing his tragic failure to suppress the violence crouching at his door. Almost immediately, a second divine interrogation begins. The Lord approaches Cain, echoing the earlier confrontation, and asks simply, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain responds with a cold, defiant lie. "I don't know," he says. He then asks the most infamous rhetorical question in human history. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The response he receives is terrifying. He is told to listen, because Abel's blood is literally and metaphorically crying out to the divine from the very soil that just absorbed it. This act of violence shattered the fundamental human obligation of mutual care. Cain traded the safety of kinship for the cold reality of individual survival, setting a precedent that would haunt the rest of human history. The immediate, material consequence of this crime is tied directly to Cain's livelihood. The earth, having opened its mouth to receive Abel's blood, is now cursed. It will never again yield crops for Cain's hands. Stripped of his ability to farm, Cain realizes he is doomed to be a restless wanderer. Panic sets in. He knows that without a home or a community, he is entirely unprotected and highly vulnerable to anyone seeking revenge. But the divine judgment carries a strange paradox. Instead of demanding a life for a life, the Lord explicitly spares Cain from execution. To enforce this, the Lord places a mark on Cain. This famous mark of Cain is often misunderstood as a physical curse, but it actually functions as a terrifying brand of divine protection, guaranteeing that anyone who harms him will suffer vengeance 7 times over. It is an unbreakable shield, but also an inescapable brand of guilt. Cain survives, but he is forced to live out his days as a walking, breathing monument to his own crime. Cain accepts his sentence and begins his geographic and spiritual exile. He moves away from the presence of the Lord, settling in the land of Nod. Nod is a word that literally translates to wandering. Yet the restless wanderer immediately attempts to lay down roots. He fathers a son, and then proceeds to build the world's very first city, naming it Enoch after his child. From Cain, the lineage cascades to Lamech. His children ignite a cultural explosion. Jabal invents herding, Jubal fathers instruments, Tubal-Cain forges tools. Yet Lamech admits to killing a young man for wounding him, declaring, "If Cain is avenged 7 times, Lamech 77 times." Lamech takes the divine protection placed on his ancestor and twists it into his self-declared, deeply disproportionate retribution. It is a mathematical and moral escalation of bloodshed. The legacy of Cain and Lamech ties the very foundations of human civilization, its music, its industry, and its cities, to an unbreakable link of violence. Ultimately, that first act of sibling rivalry established a blueprint for human progress fueled by an exponential escalation of force.